So now that Maui has been forced to rebuild virtually from scratch, what will the next chapter be of Hawaii? What will the next chapter be of Maui? It's about a $5 billion recovery. How will it prioritize how it's going to rebuild? Will it build with its rich culture in mind and kind of revamp that and try and emulate it and mirror what it once was and benefit locals, maybe do it even better this time around? Or will it bend to the powers and influences of wealthy outsiders through things like tourism? I guess you could argue it may be balanced, but I find that to be unlikely. It doesn't really happen a lot anywhere else, at least not equal balance. And although tourism can be enriching, it does tend to exploit. You have 30,000 tourists flying to Hawaii each day. That economic power is $20 billion a year. That is hard to ignore. And just to get a sense of how it can be within days of the fire, before the bodies were even removed from the smoldering ruins, residents started receiving messages from developers to sell their prime Hawaiian property so that they could develop it. So the tourism revenue also raises the cost of living and prices out a lot of native Hawaiians, forcing them to leave the state. The median price for a single family home in this area is $1 million, $1 million. And even if locals don't sell, the new building standards to withstand these new fires are likely to drive costs up, and they're not going to be able to afford it. So only time will tell exactly what Hawaii decides to do. I couldn't help but think, like after the war, after World War II, the way that some parts of, say, like a Germany rebuilt, where they kind of rebuilt what they once had or went completely modern and commercialized. That's where you get a lot of that. Sometimes you get it still in the same city, like a juxtaposition of an old, like, I don't know what, like a timber house, a timber structure, and then like you get like a modern cement building next to it.
Yeah.
But it's just like not that the fire and the war are in any way comparable, but it's the thought of when you're decimated, and you have the opportunity to rebuild, what influence what direction you take. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting challenge in the wake of tragedy that Hawaii is going to have to make a decision for. I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting you bring up World War II. It's not, right. It's not the same, but anyone who's a history buff, we think of the end of the Second World War. You think about what happens to Germany. Half of it is taken by the West, half of it is taken by the East, right? Not similar, but that imagining that, the Germans at that point, I mean, here's the thing, at the end of the Second World War, maybe it was like, it's rightfully so. But the Hawaiians at this point, this is completely unjust, right? If you have people coming in and then taking advantage of the situation because of, the trappings of capitalism, prices are raised. God knows what what insurance will be at this point with regard to covering these properties or covering this land, right? Because insurers are going to be like, well, this is a danger now. This is a known danger with regard to fire, so the insurance premiums are going to be higher than they used to be, which is also something to consider for someone who is looking to rebuild. Even if you could afford the property price of this plot of land that you're, or to rebuild the house that you've lost. Can you afford the monthly premiums with regard to your fire coverage? These are things that are going to eat into your wallet. And when you have people who are already living paycheck to paycheck, as most Americans are, that's going to be something that might ultimately be the straw that breaks the camel's back and forces you to migrate. And like you said, Hawaii's got billions of dollars in tourism, and it's sort of like who receives those billions of dollars. How is it equally apportioned out amongst the residents of Hawaii? Obviously not. That's just not how capitalism works, right? It's going to be a top 2%, 1% of people who are going to be raking in the majority of that money. And then, when you have people coming in to develop, you've got $1 million properties. The only people who are going to be able to buy that are, again, very wealthy people coming in and displacing the locals. That's a terrible situation all around.